You don't eat meat because animals are abused. Would
Yeah.
you now have the same reaction to dairy and eggs because there's inherently abuse associated with those?
Yeah, I think so. And I have been like kind of weaning off it because I've known that there's been abuse about it. But I think knowing like this, like what action, I think just like knowing more about it really is more like it makes it more.
Yeah. Is animal abuse justified if it gives us pleasure? What's your thoughts?
I don't think it is justified, but I think that the way that meat and dairy is seen in like our culture is like we kind of just see it as a product a lot of the time. So even though it's not justified, I think a lot of people have this strong disconnect from animals, and so it kind of doesn't feel unjustified, if that makes sense. Like
Right.
I think when there is that disconnect, but I think like going to farms and like I don't know, just having the contact with animals and like seeing them and how cute they are and everything, and just like how they live their own lives, I think that can really like bridge that connection and then kind of help us, I don't know, just basically like maybe act on the way on our connection to animals then, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
I see what you mean. So like when we objectify animals, it's easy to mistreat them or abuse them because we
Yeah.
don't see them as people or animals that suffer,
Yeah.
that can experience.
And I'm guilty to that as well, because I think because I went veggie just over a year ago, but up until then I would still think like it's not justified, but I would still eat meat at that time because I had such a strong, I just couldn't see animals like have more of a connection to them other than like pets and things. But then when you kind of have more of a connection to the animals, you see them in a similar, not like you would see pets, but like you have more of a connection then. And it's like, I don't know, now that I've been veggie for a while, I think, to me it feels a bit weird now. The thought of eating meat is weird to me now because I think I don't know, there's been that kind of change in relationship, if that makes sense.
Right, yeah. Do you think animals which are normally considered like farmed animals. Sorry guys, I'm recording a video.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Do you think animals which are normally considered farm animals could be considered as companion animals like pets? Do you think there is a difference?
I'm not really sure. I guess they could be considered as pets. I think maybe it depends on the animal and like whether they. I'm not really sure like about the history of like pets and like how it's happened and stuff. But I feel like even if we didn't have them as pets, just to kind of like leave them alone and like if that. I don't know. I feel like I'm not worded that very
At
well.
least don't abuse them.
Yeah.
You don't have to be around them or have them as companion animals, but bare minimum, don't inflict suffering on them.
Yeah, when I say the connection, I mean like, with pets you have this level of like care and respect and stuff, and I feel like they don't have to be your pet in order to have that. But I think in just kind of like, observing animals or just seeing them and like living their lives, I think that can kind of harness this like sense of care and like respect towards them, if that makes sense.
Could I ask you about, so you mentioned meat, but do you know about what happens in the dairy and egg industries, about the abuse that happens there?
I do, to some extent. I'm not fully versed on it, but I know that calves are like taken away from their mothers to get dairy, and that mothers are kind of kept what's the word? Like
lactating until they can't, and then they get killed. That's all for me. And with the egg industry, all male chicks are macerated at birth.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so they're separated by the colour of their feathers, and the males get just blended up alive on their first day of birth.
Oh.
And the females will obviously get exploited for their reproductive systems.
Oh, wow, I didn't know.
until they can't lay eggs and then be killed. Or they'll just be sold as, for their meat at I think it's 9 or 10 weeks.
I think that's really interesting because you see so many egg brands that kind of promote it as free range and like happy chicken eggs and stuff.
This is standard practice even on those free range farms.
Wow, I didn't know that because for a long time actually I was wondering how eggs could be unethical, because if chickens are like laying them, I kind of thought, oh yeah, but they're like doing that anyway. But actually, like when you hear what happens to the male chicks just the way that even female chicks are treated, like that's so sad.
Even the conditions, the free range farms are absolutely atrocious still. They're given really awful living conditions. There was a scandal recently with little farms where they the meat that they were selling, the chicken flesh that they were selling, had burns on the legs because they're living in their own feces, and they get acid burns from living in their own feces. So it's really bad. So, and this is even these free range farms a lot of time. So there is no ethical way to farm animals because they ultimately have to be abused for it. So hearing that, do you think you'd have the same reaction to like, because you don't eat meat because animals are abused, would you now have the same reaction to dairy and eggs because there's inherently abuse associated with those?
Yeah, I think so. And I have been like kind of weaning off it because I've known that there's been abuse about it, but I think knowing like this, like what actually, I think just like knowing more about it really is more like, it makes it more,
exactly. And like I said, it's the relationship we have, and we need to change that from one of exploitation to one of love and compassion. And the best way we can do that is by not paying for their exploitation.
And I think just being, just knowing about like what actually happens, and I think that the packaging can be so misleading, like about like the happy hens and stuff like that, and it can be quite misleading. And I think actually just like being just knowing about like the actual processes, I think it can really, for me definitely, like I mean I haven't bought a pack of eggs or bought like dairy butter or like milk in a long time, but I'd sort of like just have it if it was like in biscuits or like stuff like that, but I feel like it's just kind of like, oh actually if it's in it, it's kind of like, oh.
Well, even if it's like a trace product, it's supporting that industry.
Even
if it's just one ingredient. Like ultimately it doesn't matter to that animal, that's still contributing to their exploitation. You say about education, I'm giving people resources. First of all, I'd recommend a documentary called Dominion. I will warn you, it's a little bit gruesome because it goes through the farming practices, but I think it's really important that we witness what happens to these animals. And it's one thing me describing chickens being macerated, but it's another seeing it and be like, that is, you see the living being in that animal before it gets killed. And I think that connection needs to be made for us to break our ties to animal exploitation. But so those aren't actually, so Dominion I'd recommend, but the two links there is, one is to a resource which gives you free nutritionist and food prep, and it's all plant-based and whole foods.
Oh, cool.
So it's really good for our health and cheaper. And the other one is a talk, and there's no footage in it, it's just a talk by an animal rights activist, and he talks about the ethical side of veganism. I'd really, really recommend watching that.
Thank you.
Check out those two links.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thanks for stopping and talking, I appreciate you're busy. What's your name?
My pleasure, Rianne.
Rianne, my name's Amber.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks for watching. Please hit the like button, subscribe and ring the bell to get notified when videos go up every Thursday. If you want to watch another conversation, here are a couple of options. And if you want to support my activism, there's a link in my profile to a page where you can buy me a coffee and donate money to an animal sanctuary. Thanks. Amber.